Shane, it is lovely to see you here today.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for giving up a Monday morning.
Not at all. It's the privilege is all mine, I can tell you.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much.
Well, I could not resist meeting with you today, Shane, because I'm a gardener. I love gardening. I love flowers. I've grown them all my life. And when I saw your CV, it just looked amazing, your background. So I thought the privilege is all mine to meet you, I have to say.
There is something about gardening that bonds people together. I always think if I meet a new client and they're interested in the garden, I always think we're going to get on well. If they are afraid of mud, we're not going to get on well.
Yeah.
No. There's a different approach, isn't there?
I'm not afraid of mud, definitely. I think there's I remember when I was first ordained, I was only in my young 20s, you know, I was sort of ordained young. And I was in a parish in the northeast. We had a lot of death and dying, you know, it was a big parish. And it was just as you get in a big parish, you know, there's always funerals every week.
Yeah.
And I just seemed to have a lot of death for the first time in my life. And I had a small garden, and just literally getting my hands in the soil and growing things and having some life was a wonderful balance to that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think even for children to learn that you plant a seed, it grows, it flowers, it produces more seed, it dies, and the next year the seed comes back. There's something just so reassuring about life when you garden.
We've had this series of lockdowns, haven't we? And I think so many people discovered the therapeutic nature of gardens.
And I know that some people don't have gardens, but even to have a few herb plants growing on your windowsill, that will change your life. To eat something you've grown from seed, especially as a child. I mean, I started gardening when I was a child. It's just it's the best lesson, I think, you give anyone.
Well, I think it's very deep, actually. I mean, speaking obviously as a Christian, as a bishop, it's that co-creation with God that you're invited into.
Absolutely.
That, not just to enjoy creation, but to be part of creating.
And the responsibility that falls on your shoulders.
Maybe brings us into sustainable church flowers.
Indeed.
Tell me about this.
Well, I've always approached my work in flower design from being a gardener, from being interested in things growing, from looking at what's in season, using it, growing it, cutting it, putting it in water, basically, to make it look beautiful. I think sustainable church flowers has fallen into place because there are so many people who don't know that they are being unsustainable. And there are so many people who don't really know what the problem is. And my wife is a church warden in Worcestershire, and it was she who said, you really need to put your money where your mouth is and start helping people in churches, because churches are responsible for a lot of flower decoration, both weekly and for weddings and funerals and festivals and high days. And the people who do the flowers in there, generally speaking, have been doing them for a long time. So they don't necessarily feed into new up and coming thoughts. I mean, I'm just fortunate that I'm based in London, therefore I get all these things thrust at me. I've traveled a lot to give talks. Really, the sustainable thing I got from traveling to the West Coast of America and San Francisco in the early 2000s. And I couldn't believe how important they were placing, how much importance they were placing on local, sustainable, seasonal flowers. Just like the food movement, where you go to the local restaurant, you know the name of the cow that you're eating practically. It's something that we've gotten used to, but in flowers, not at all.
And I guess there's two sides to it. There's where the flowers come from, how they're grown, and then there's perhaps the medium that you stick them into when you make the arrangement.
Very elegantly put there. It is a multifaceted issue. And I think in the ideal world, we would only use flowers that are grown in our own garden. And that's how it all started. Really, that's what people did. Or they found flowers in the wayside and they brought them to the churches. I mean, I'm talking specifically about churches at the moment, rather than for parties and for other big occasions. But really, the whole idea of flowers coming into churches would not have been unsustainable until halfway through the last century, because it wouldn't have been possible to be, quite simply. The odd time you would find some exotic thing and that might be brought into a church, but before that it couldn't. They weren't there. So really, the whole issue is where the flowers come from. And if we look at that first, importing, we obviously have the carbon footprint of the import. We also have the carbon footprint of the water that it's taken wherever it's been grown, roses in Colombia, roses in Kenya. We also have the chemical footprint, because all those things, we don't know how much pesticides are used in their growth, artificial fertilizer, blah, blah, blah. They're then exported from that country, they're sprayed with chemicals. They then are brought to Holland, they're sprayed with chemicals. They're then brought to England, they could be sprayed again. There's no restriction on any of that, unlike food. Flowers do not have any laws around them. So the imported flower can be out of season, out of sync with nature, it can be sprayed with chemicals, and it has a massive carbon footprint. That is very hard to overcome all of that, especially in the winter here where we don't have flowers in a great abundance. Perhaps that's why early Christians used greenery at Christmas and why they used holly and ivy and mistletoe, because that was what was there. And didn't need to be supplemented, candles, holly, ivy. Then the second problem is what it's arranged in, as you said. The big problem is floral foam. And floral foam was invented in 1953. So when people say, but that's how we've always done it in churches, not true. I would have thought it probably wouldn't even have been known in churches. I'm sure most church flower people would have been too mean to buy it until probably the 1970s. So it's quite recent. Floral foam is a byproduct of the petrochemical industry. So it's a plastic. The big problem with plastic is, of course, microplastics. When you soak a block of green floral foam in water, you notice the water goes green. You pull the plug out, all those microplastics all go down the sink and make their way to whatever water source they're being drained into, which then can make its way to the sea. And we know that creatures eat those microplastics, and then they make their way back into the food chain. The main producers of floral foam have never really given a correct or full description of what the ingredients are. So again, we don't know the chemicals that are produced in it. They have brought out a new one, which they call biofoam, and they say biodegrades, which is a semantic thing. It biodegrades within, I think, 2 years in ideal landfill, but it's still a microplastic. So the fact that it biodegrades means that it falls apart, but it falls apart to its component parts, which are microplastics.
Okay.
And this is
square one.
Back to square one, and it's a real definition problem. And to me, the easiest thing people can do in floristry is omit floral foam. The next thing they can do is start to think seasonally. And then the third thing they could do, which is much harder, would be to only have locally grown flowers. And really what I would love is for people to know that those options are both true and know why they're true and to make the choice.
So that's great. So I was at a church yesterday. So let's really bring this up to date. You know, a church yesterday in Worcestershire. I won't say where.
No, I think you shouldn't.
But the floral displays were beautiful, as far as I was concerned. So the flowers they used were sunflowers, kind of like small sunflowers.
Yeah, beautiful.
So probably British grown, I would guess. I would have no idea.
Well, if they're not, they could have been.
Yeah.
That's the big thing there. There are flower growers in Worcestershire who are producing sunflowers as we speak.
Fantastic. That's great to know. And it was a lovely lady doing the arrangement. She was a retired florist. And at the end of the service, you know, they looked absolutely beautiful in the church. 2 behind the altar, 1 in the porch, beautifully arranged. So we'll come on to that. But the flowers themselves, she was taking afterwards to people who are housebound.
Wonderful.
And so I gave her, you know, bless the flowers. So she took these episcopally blessed flowers into homes. I couldn't think of a nicer way to use them. So
Yeah.
that was great, because the church, was not going to be particularly open during the week. So at least they were going to be enjoyed, not just on the day, but really brought life. And okay, let's say they were British flowers, so that's great. They could be Worcestershire flowers. Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, what were they stuck into? I wasn't kind of rude enough to burrow around, but I did think I saw the green floral foam there. And,
Right.
they're kind of heavy, aren't they, to hold?
Yeah.
How would you kind of think to arrange flowers like that without the floral foam?
In a deeper vase, in a container that holds water. And this is the main problem. In churches, flowers have become bigger. And probably even when you were first ordained, I don't know how long ago that was, probably flowers were smaller. The arrangements, I mean, things were not done on such a big scale. When floral foam became a thing, you'll know a lot of those churches have little metal stands that they do arrangements in. And on top of that metal stand fits a bowl. And into that bowl, the only thing you can really do is a block of floral foam. The easiest thing you can do. I know that Worcester Cathedral have had an urn made for foam-free arranging. I'm told, I haven't seen it myself, where they can arrange flowers. I think that containers are the problem. And then churches will say, but we can't afford to buy new containers. How much do you spend on floral foam per year? And, over a period of 5 years, that's probably quite a lot of money. And if you use that instead on buying a few new containers, that's what it would, those sunflowers are really easy to arrange in a tall vase, which holds water. The sunflowers are happier because they're in water, and the arranging is easier. I mean, that would be my advice. And again, it's hard advice because people say we can't afford it. If they felt that they had to use what they already have, buckets make a very good thing to arrange in, filled with chicken wire. Again, you just have a bit more depth than you do in those bowls. Fill it full of chicken wire, which is reusable a million times, and then hide the bucket with ivy after we've finished. We've got videos on the Sustainable Church Flowers website and on the Instagram account, which show me arranging in a bucket, if you want to see such a thing.
I think the metal stands, I mean, certainly as a vicar, they've been slightly the bane of my life in different churches. I went into one in a city church, and there was nowhere to have children activities, during the service, a creche or children's activities. And we had this wonderful room called the choir vestry, which, I said, when did we last have a choir? And they said 1962. So it's still called the choir vestry. But what it had become was a sacred repository of church flower arranging materials. So it had no less than 7 wardrobes that had appeared from people's houses. Every wardrobe filled with boxes of floral foam.
Of course.
And which was, is very bulky to store, and you buy it en masse, you get it slightly cheaper. So you've always got huge quantities of it. And then all the receptacles, the different things. Probably the things they were using before they got the metal stands.
Even that far back.
And then the metal stands come in, you're in a whole different ball game. So sometimes the paraphernalia of all that is
it's phenomenal.
Really, and once we moved all that out, and I said, you can have one thing for the floral foam, not 6. And we created the most lovely children's area, and that was absolutely fine. And maybe arrangements got slightly simpler, I don't know, but they still look good to me. I mean, the floral foam, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that's fooled me over the years is it's green. It looks green.
Of course.
And somehow you imagine it's sponge and kind of is probably vaguely okay, but
it's not even vaguely okay. And it doesn't compost. This is the big semantic problem. Biodegradable is a word that we can use for things that fall apart. Compostable is what we should be aiming for, and compostable means it returns to the soil in an inert form. And that is not even slightly possible with floral foam. And, you know, the length and breadth of Worcestershire and England and the world, every church graveyard has a lovely compost heap full of floral foam.
Now, it's really interesting you say that, because that is where I became aware that floral foam did not compost down.
No.
Because you see it on composters and it's absolutely disgusting.
It's disgusting.
It just forms a horrible mass of sort of decaying plastic, doesn't it?
That's exactly. And you know, people think it just takes a while. They've actually estimated that it would take 400 to 500 years for floral foam in its current state to break down in a compost heap. And so when it's buried with bodies, the body will have decomposted and become earth much quicker than the arrangement on top of the coffin.
Gosh,
which is quite it's quite something.
It's very challenging, because I love floral displays and I admire them often. It's, you know, in cathedrals and big churches, and certainly in Worcestershire we'll have some wonderful flower arrangers. I know we will, because I've seen their work.
Yes, of course.
Now tell me, did I read somewhere the RHS were banning floral foam?
Yes, they have.
This year.
From this year, for all their shows and for all their categories, because in the RHS, floral foam wasn't just used in the flower arranging categories, it was also used, for instance, in the dahlia growing, the peony growing, where they display traditionally the products in a sort of a fan shape. And they've been using floral foam probably only since the 60s, 70s. But it's become such a routine that's what they do. And I'm on a committee at the RHS called the Cut Flower and Houseplant Advisory Committee. And they this has been going for 3 years. We've been discussing this and made the I think very brave decision this year to say it was banned, which is an awful word to use, but it was the only way you can say this is our stance and we have to find another way of doing it.
Yeah,
because it's unsustainable. And if the RHS is priding itself on being a sustainable body, it can't. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's quite a groundbreaking move by the RHS, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is.
In that world of floral arrangement.
Yeah, and it is. It's groundbreaking. It's brave, and it's necessary. You know, and that's what really got me to thinking, because obviously the RHS. Everything is for the show.
Yeah.
Are flowers in churches about show? Or are they about a way of offering to God the products of his nature?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to a bishop, but that is what I would love to ask church flower people. Why do we have flowers in the church at all? What is the reason? And if it is what I feel is the reason, that it's an act of worship in itself, and that it's a bringing from the joys of nature into the church, then I think they have to be pure. They have to be fine, upstanding examples of their type. Yeah. And if underneath all that, but first there's the issue of where they've come from. Ideally, it would be lovely if they didn't come very far, but we can much more easily change how we arrange them. And the fact that they're arranged in something that is actually so damaging to nature, it doesn't seem to me that adds up.
That's lovely. It's lovely to hear you describe your own offering. So when you're making a flower arrangement for a church setting, you see that as offering glory to God or offering worship to God.
Yeah, I mean, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. And I was quite a religious one especially when I was a child. But when I do flowers in a church for a wedding or a funeral or anything, I feel very different to doing flowers in a setting for a party or somewhere for a dinner. Very different.
Yeah.
There's something much more, respectful of the setting, of course, but also that there is a purpose to them. Yeah. And I don't want to do anything that makes man look too important. I want nature to look more important.
No, that's lovely, especially you're bringing that little bit of accent there, some Celtic Christianity in, and
yeah,
you know, just coming to mind that Celtic prayer, I give you worship with the whole of my life. And you know, if you're a florist, a gardener, the whole of your life is built around gardens, flowers, and so on. So that's, you're speaking truth there.
Yeah, and that's what I feel has to be brought into the whole process of church flowers. You know, I think just like the RHS have made this very big commitment and very big public statement, I feel churches should also lead. And churches of all faiths and denominations and blah, 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 because it changes how you approach flowers. If you're, instead of thinking, what color am I going to use and how am I going to make the shape? If you're thinking, what's there? And that informs how you arrange them, which container you pick, which place you put them. It becomes a very different creative process.
Yeah.
Flower people are always saying we are creatives. Prove it, I would say.
Exactly. Well, it's like cooks, isn't it? It's like thinking, if I use seasonal produce and local produce wherever possible,
absolutely,
you'll start cooking different things at different times of the year.
Totally.
And you'll start connecting again with the seasons that we live in, rather than every month being exactly the same as any other month.
And I especially want that when I go into a church. I mean, maybe the Celtic bit kicks in. I want the slightly pagan feel that I want to go in, and I want to feel what's happening in nature. And, you know, that sort of feeling of, wow, gosh, look at that, first snowdrops. Maybe it's a bowl of snowdrops and that's all it is. Growing snowdrops dug out of somebody's garden that are going to go back to that garden. And maybe that's what Mary brought from her garden this week. And that is just all I would want and all I would need. I don't need an arrangement of lilies out of season that have been flawed.
Snowdrops in a bowl with moss or something like that. What could be lovelier than that?
Absolutely.
And no, that's a really lovely picture. And I've seen, I would just want to recommend anyone who's watching this to look at Shane's work on YouTube. I found Sustainable Church Flowers on YouTube somehow, but it's also your website and so on. Just about this movement that's growing really within English churches to be more sustainable, to be more holistic, to connect with nature around them, and to stop using floral foam and to use natural products. So there's a great picture there. It's slightly intimidating to me as a hopeless flower arranger to see you bringing in wonderful branches and being so creative, but it did make me think maybe I could do this. I mean,
well, you see, that's what it's all about. It is having the confidence to know that your creativity is good enough.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you don't have to have been doing the church flowers for 27 years.
Yeah.
Or you can do something that's worth having. I love to think that it's simply being thoughtful. When people say, oh, sustainability is too difficult, just be thoughtful then. Just think before you do something and make the choice.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what chefs, cooks and chefs are doing that so much. That is the movement. And I think flower people need to be inspired by that.
And having the courage to say, we're not going to use floral foam. Takes real courage. I mean, I would get shot down by some for even suggesting it, maybe.
Yeah.
But actually, it's rather like saying we're not going to make any more petrol-driven cars from 2030. Unless you say something like that, you'll never make the move because it's too difficult.
No,
where you get in a tram line of doing things one way, and
that's the thing. That's the thing. And I think, you know, people who smoked, they found it very hard to give up smoking, and lots of people said it isn't bad for your health. That it isn't. It isn't. And then they sort of found they were dying from lung cancer.
And you wonder what we were doing, filling our compost heaps with floral
foam. You know, in 20 years' time, our children will be saying, why did you think of that? We've still got the floral foam in our compost heaps.
It'll be there a long time to come.
Exactly.
But the whole eco-church movement as well, it would be great to see that as part of becoming an eco-church, perhaps.
I think it's the easiest part. You know, changing your heat, your radiators, insulating old medieval buildings, that's really hard. Changing how you approach the flowers, so much better.
We're definitely doing it in a way that affirms and loves our flower arrangers, because they do a fantastic job.
Yes.
And we want them to carry on beautifying churches, but in a sustainable way.
It isn't a criticism of them. It's just a fact that this is what we have found out. This is what is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not saying what you're doing is bad. It's saying that we have new facts.
We've opened our eyes, and even biodegradable foam is bad. That's what you're saying.
Plastic, yeah.
Yeah.
It's plastic.
Yeah.
And we just
want
need
to
to
look.
get away.
Yeah. Compostable is the key thing.
Compostable is the key thing.
So chicken wire and other things, and it's all on your site.
Chicken wires, twigs, the right container.
Yeah.
Growing things.
The right container. Yeah, growing things. We must, just before we finish, people may not have yet seen your website, Sustainable Church Flowers, or Instagram or YouTube, but I'm sure they will when they've seen this. But they will have seen, I bet, the royal wedding of William and Kate in 2011, 10 years ago, and that amazing scene coming into Westminster Abbey with trees right the length of that enormous aisle. And you were responsible for the flowers on that occasion, and the trees and everything else.
Yeah, I was. And you know, the trees, Druids worshipped under trees. The whole architecture of medieval churches is based on the lattice work of trees and branches. So for me, bringing trees into Westminster Abbey was not an odd thing to do. I think the dean wasn't quite so sure, but luckily I had higher authority.
Higher authority. I thought that was a masterstroke. I have to say, I've no idea you were doing it, and you know how exciting to meet you 10 years on. And that must have been the kind of commission of the century, really.
Well, it was an extraordinary thing that, you know, any clients who are in harmony with your thoughts, and they were 125% in harmony with the thoughts that it should be sustainable, if we even used that word 10 years ago, I don't know, but that nothing should be wasted. I think that was that lovely, you know, well brought up wartime effort of don't waste. Everything should have a repurpose afterwards and shouldn't be extravagant. And yes, of course it costs money to buy big trees, but if they're being planted afterwards in your garden and in the National Memorial Arboretum and, you know, in friends' gardens, then it's not a waste.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that was the joy of that. That was the joy of that commission. We were totally on the same hymn sheet, shall we say.
I mean, well, you couldn't get a higher recommendation than that. And you were telling me before we started how each of those trees from the royal wedding is now growing somewhere else, as you say, their gardens in Norfolk, friends' gardens, places in Wales, and then the National Arboretum, unknown to many people. Has some of those trees there. That's a lovely thought, isn't it? Fantastic.
Well, I think that is a good statement of a married couple's intention. You know, that is a good statement. So and a good statement for a church, a cathedral, or an abbey, that's what we think is appropriate. Yeah.
And just to reassure people, I don't feel there's anything pagan at all about bringing greenery, trees, growing in pots. Growing plants, for goodness sake, what could be more close to God's intention? There's an old saying of one of the Desert Fathers that when you get to the gates, the pearly gates, and they've got Jesus there, not Peter, and he asks the people, they're all expecting this, that, and the other question about what they've done with their lives or not done. And his one question is, have you enjoyed my creation? And it's such a lovely story. Have you enjoyed my creation? And you're describing exactly ways we can bring that joy into our church, but make it healthy and sustainable.
Do you know what I would love? That if in small country churches, the dream would be for me that everybody coming brings a bunch of flowers and there's a nice bowl of water in front of the altar and they put their bunch in that bowl. And that teaches them that they're bringing their offering, if you want, that they're bringing something that is from their garden as a thank you to the person who created it. And that there's no pretension in the arranging of them, that it's just put there as their offering. I know that wouldn't, practically that would work with great difficulty, but we do it for Mother's Day.
We do it for Mother's Day. That's a great picture. I could talk all day, Shane, with you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
fascinating.
Yeah.
A joy to meet you. But
and you.
I think just so I'm hitting the diocesan priorities here, we've got these values of living as kingdom people.
Yeah.
So that means living in God's world with values of love, compassion, justice, and freedom. But with a particular focus at the moment on creating healthy and sustainable churches.
Yeah.
And really, you've been describing in the specific area of church flowers what healthy and sustainable might look like.
And achievable.
And achievable.
I do want to reassure anyone listening to this that it is achievable. Yeah. Like anything, like when you first use Greek yogurt in your cooking, there will be that curdling moment when you think, oh dear, that isn't what Delia did. Yeah. But then suddenly 3 weeks into it, you'll think, well, actually, this is so much easier.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is a teething thing, and then it's easy. And
these people, one thing I know about church flower rangers, they are creative.
Yes.
And they are practical.
Absolutely.
They will work out how to build things, how to create things.
Yeah.
And like the RHS in a way, they've set a challenge, do this without floral foam.
Yeah.
And I think if the RHS can do that, somehow the Church of England can do it too.
Well, I would love it if they could, and I would love it for all the right reasons. It sort of gives out the right signals. Yeah, and your COP26 in November. Yeah. You know, it's a sort of a nice thing to be able to say this is one of our thoughts that we are trying to implement and to educate in the churches.
That's great. Shane, thank you very much for all that you've given to us and for all you've shared with us today. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.